All right.
All right.
Hey there.
Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm playing a song right now called Get Up by Kali Uchis because this is a struggle I have frequently on the weekends. Just getting up, and that's part of why we're recording this at 10:52 a.m. on Saturday. Otherwise, I stay in bed for a long time and procrastinate, which is the subject of our conversation today. And I think it's really relevant because there was a study that came out last year by Upwork and the Freelancers Union that estimates that basically over half of the US workforce will be freelancing in the near future. So, okay, it says nearly 47% of millennials are already freelancing, which is more than any other generation. The projection is that by 2027, 86.5 million people will be freelancing, and non-freelancers will be, I think says 86.5 million, and then 83.4 million is the projected, non-freelancer economy. So that for me, I have a much easier time doing everything on deadline when I'm working for a boss who's right there. I'm in the office. People can see if I'm on Facebook. That's way easier for me than working on my own. So that's part of why I think this topic is so relevant. So would you want to talk about what you found out about this topic?
Yeah, I did. I think it's so relevant as well. Excuse me, I had a hiccup. Coming from the grassroots sort of world, I find there are lots of times where you become your own boss. That would sort of like the opposite, right? Where you're dictating your own time and your own success and your timelines and deadlines. I found a great article on Raptitude. Let me see if I can find the author's name right now. But on procrastination and how we learn disproportionate reactions to having environments where we might not necessarily have, or we have very differing guidance and maybe inequality in our workplaces. So I just wanted to touch on that some.
Yeah. You should tell me more about it. Which workplaces are you thinking of?
Sure. So, when I think a lot of my own experiences in organizing spaces, a lot of people are seeing this on the Free Artist website, but they may or may not know that it's been going on for around 6 years now. And I remember the way that to be able to get up and off the ground was certainly set really, really high goals. And this was something that was also mirrored in this article, which I'll post the link to, that, and the example that the author gave was that growing up in a family where you had really high expectations, some people might be able to cope with that well. Some others might create a neurotic response to that, where even that very positive seeming goal of having high expectations create a response where they fall off and procrastinate more out of a fear of a possible failure of not reaching those goals. And that's really true for myself and in organizing spaces like Free Artists.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my feeling about this is, or the reason why I connected so much to this article, I felt so right, is that I had such a huge problem with procrastination last year when I was in India on a fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing research about this really cool movement. I loved the research part, but the putting it into a podcast, which was this goal I set for myself partially so I could get into radio journalism when I hadn't done any journalism in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set this really high goal for myself as I want to be like NPR Code Switch, which continues to be my favorite podcast. It is so high quality, such good research, such good hosts, such good editing. It's just beautiful.
Word.
And I didn't have any of the experience or training that they had. I mean, they had a whole team.
Mm-hmm.
So I was setting this really, really high goal for myself without having the way to get there necessarily. I wanted to do 1 week per podcast, but it took me 1 month. And then once I got back to the US, it extended into several months. And I have the script sort of written for the next episode, but I'm so afraid of this not being a perfect episode that I haven't published it. I haven't even edited it again.
Mm-hmm. And they're phenomenal podcasts, I might add.
Well, you are a huge hand in that. You're the training that that got me anywhere with podcasting. So.
And those are.
You're the best.
You're the best. Those are Struggle for a Name, correct?
Yes. Struggle for a Name.
Which also we'll link in the description.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, that was everything. And I'm realizing now, looking at the article, so not only did I set this really high expectation for myself, but part of why I set that was I'd just gotten out of college, and this is about to sound I don't know, a little spoiled or something, but I had gotten all of these senior awards, which I wasn't expecting, but having the highest grades in my class, which I had no idea, I thought I was just normal and there was a lot of grade inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly I get out of Yale University, top of my class, and I'm oh my God, I'm so talented. What?
Mm.
But then I was felt like I should then move on into the world as the top of the Yale class and be achieving at a higher rate than my classmates, which has definitely not been the case. And the whole year of procrastinating, I think, was part of that fear of failure, which is something the article talked about that I thought was amazing, was that every single task becomes this question of who am I?
Right.
And the answer just keeps being I'm a failure, every time. Either it's perfect or I'm a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's imperfect, it still feels like a failure. If you don't do it, it still feels like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that if you were to do it in the future, that it would be perfect and therefore you'd be okay. So it's just easier to not do it and say oh, it was just today. I didn't get anything done.
Right. It's that almost crippling possibility of a failure. And I
Right.
identify with that so much. You know, when I think about uh, doing things with free artists for the last 6 years, even prior to that, I'd spent 10 years mentoring under another artist to learn how to run youth art programs in and out of schools, learn how to write grants and things like this, and succeeding at that, being a very young person with no schooling training. Um, but then as I moved into things with other creative peers and the goal, out of the mentorship, and the goals fell more on how we are going to succeed on our own. Um, I felt the same thing. Like, um, how I would love, one of my biggest dreams is to be able to open up a community center. Those were prevalent as I was a young person, and it was through that I even had like the felt welcome in a space that was opportunity to, express myself. And I wondered like how am I not succeeding at this yet? And coupled with the reality of that, realistically, a lot of like the grassroots spaces do not have the means by which to also take more marginalized people, which, I'm very low income, poor person, out of that reality. And that was certainly something I wanted to be able to do to like on both on an emotional and um, real level, connecting with people where they're at, but also like supporting financially, like being able to take um, where we're at and bring it out of an impoverished place. And wondering like, you know, why is this not working yet? And through that, trying to set bigger goals and stronger goals, and when that wouldn't succeed, um, more immediately learning that maybe things aren't going to succeed, and that would generate, as this article mentions, like the same neurotic tendency to think like, well, oh gosh, like if I might not succeed here, and that gets scarier and scarier, up to the point where it becomes self-preservation, and we're safe feeling internally to not go after things or to let things fall apart. Um, I've had countless arguments and projects that fell apart from that feeling of a possible failure. But and like this is why it's neurotic. Like at least making the failure happen, and I know that it's broken logically, but like making the failure happen through like an argument or letting something fall apart was at least some measure of control versus the fear of something I couldn't control.
Right. Did you want to talk about more how like spaces can affect that? Like how I mean there are personal things that we can talk about that the article talks about.
Yeah.
But are there ways that spaces can be more thoughtful about race, class, and gender to sort of short circuit this kind of reaction from us?
Yeah. So, well, just so I can understand, like more how spaces are more corporate of it, or like how spaces could better do something to combat this type of reaction. Do you mean?
Yeah, how spaces could do better, be more thoughtful of intersectionality,
Mm.
um, I don't know if that's something you want to talk about now. If not, can you just cut this out later?
Certainly. So I think it's one way that spaces could be better about that, and this might even get into like a meta conversation about what we're doing even with this on podcast, but
Mm-hmm.
I think simplifying your goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
sort of and you know, if it's well, starting for simplifying your goals with yourself, and if you're doing something with someone else in some type of space, um, some type of agreed upon, like genuine foundation building in your working relationship, or friendship relationship, whatever the nuance of your relationship is there, to intentionally make a choice towards, excuse me, make a choice towards being able to associate what you're doing with, or the uncertainties of what you're doing with a positive outcome versus a possible failure.
Right. Just that the process is positive, rather than the outcome being whether it's a positive or negative experience, that just the process is positive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
Part of
go ahead.
Part of why I'm thinking about this is, so I'm currently in an all-white newsroom, but there's this really cool internship program called the Emma Bowen Foundation, and they pair, I think, female, like aspiring journalists of color, I think, to newsrooms where they, that would be right for them. So they like basically, because of this like partnership that one of my coworkers, I think, initiated, they sent us like 3 or 4 options for Emma Bowen scholars who we could then hire, and they pay for part of their wages. So it's so exciting because that means this summer there are going to be 3 other interns. All are female. 2 of them are Black women, which is like huge for just like doing better reporting in our community. I'm so excited.
That's really cool.
But I'm also, but I'm partially a little bit responsible for how the interns feel in our workplace. And I'm really excited about that because I've had trouble feeling good in this workplace, and I really want to make it better for other people. And having, like, even just being a female reporter, like the only female reporter in our little newsroom, like that was already feeling stressful. But I think being the only non-white people in the newsroom, luckily they're 2, so they have each other to sort of like make things a little bit better, but like it's still gonna be hard. So I'm trying to think of like how I can make life better for all of them, but especially for the 2 who are gonna have to enter this like all white newsroom that's been all white since forever. And I'm just wondering if I can like take some of the pressure off of like, when they succeed, they're succeeding as individuals, and if they're like, struggling, they're struggling as individuals, and so that doesn't reflect, either on their identity or on like broader demographic the way sometimes can do if people are like, when you're the only or one of the only ones in a space, it feels like you have to represent your whole demographic.
Yeah, be sort of the spokesperson for your demographic and
right.
the mounting pressure that would cause.
Yeah, and that just sucks. So, I mean, hopefully we can prevent some of that from happening. But yeah, that's part of why I'm curious about how to support, other people in spaces that were not meant for them. We're not built for them,
Yeah. I wonder about also, like, how much space there could be, even to just, like, bring it up and then, like, talk about it with the interns, and just how useful that is. And,
right.
I meant,
right.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking it'd be great to have, like, weekly intern lunches. One, I'm really lonely and I would love to have some friends. And two, I think that could be a good space. Like, if I make it clear that, like, I this is just one thing that one of my coworkers, the other woman in the office, is amazing at, and she's so good at emphasizing that, like, your personhood and your happiness is most important, and the work is very much second or third or fourth priority,
Yeah.
That, like, that what you do is not as important as how happy you are. And that is such a relief because, like, when I talked about, like, taking a vacation to see Tommy, she was like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, I think that's so important. Go. Don't even worry about it. You don't have to tell me about it. Like.
Awesome.
It's so nice. And she's like, yeah, she checks in on how I'm doing and stuff. So I think I'm just going to follow her lead, and try to check in on everyone, make sure that they're happy, and, like, focus on that number one as, like, the goal of their internship is just being happy.
Yeah. Yay. And I mean, like, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna, share on that I feel really similar, with, like this podcast that we're doing together, right? Like, we onset from a space with, like, really clear goals, right? That we didn't want anything that would cause stress, which I think speaks to, like, already feeling from both of us, like, the worries of that possible failure. But instead, something where we could work together as a team, and have something really exciting that comes out. Well, not even something that comes out, but, like, something where we could share and learn skills from one another, and have something that kind of, like, sticks.
Right. And I do think that, like, part of it is about our friendship, and I do feel like so much closer. Like, we've had these really, really great conversations, and, like, I understand, like, we've talked about some of this stuff. Like, I know about your experiences in organizing and free artists, and but, like, hearing it through this perspective, I think is I'm so happy.
Me too.
Yeah, and I think it's such a good point that this is about the process instead of about, like, what we've created, about what we've created being perfect or whatever,
Right. Our listeners might not know that we checked in right before even this recording right here, and we took a 45-minute, 15-minute break, just to make sure that we were feeling good about where we were at. And heck, I hadn't written any notes since the first of last month when we recorded our last one. But it wasn't about the work. It was, like, bringing ourselves back to a place where, like, okay, cool, like, I'm super ready. Me too.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
through that, that type of checking in and that type of like core foundational building on our friendship, to me, is steps in that direction of like, this is how it can associate it with success versus like a possible failure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. I totally agree.
Cool.
Um, there's some other like things that came up in another part, like sort of a the results of this blogger's experiment with themselves, just to see how whether they could prevent this procrastinating after realizing that it's about a worry of being imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of them really work with what I do in my job to be like so much more productive than I am on my own time. And I don't know if you wanted to talk about that as like, further about sort of solutions.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I think these goals can be broken down into sort of like investing, like having your expectations be imperfection, like on when I do short stories on a deadline that I'm not that invested in, that are like fun, but it's not like this is going to explain, racial inequality in Charlottesville, when it's just like, let me write about historic trees or something that like, I don't care that much about, but it's fun to write about. Then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna write 600 words about trees, interview 3 people, take 3 pictures. I'm good. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. That is such a relief, because it's like, I just put in like this day of work, 2 days of work, boom, it's done. But like when I do these articles that are about like explaining racial inequality, basically, I take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks on it, and like my coworkers are like, when is this article getting done? You've like put it off a bunch. And I'm like, I just have, a couple more interviews, or if I just had a little bit more time. And because I take more time, I feel like it has to be more perfect. Whereas like just these short articles, with low expectations, are so much less stressful. It's just like, and I think that's about embracing imperfection. It's such a lesson that I'm like realizing from this article and from my recent work. And then 2 other strategies are keeping a checklist of tasks. I have a little white notebook that is like online, and I just, on each page, I have like the date, and then I have like to do, and then I have, 10 a.m. to 11, do this task, and then as I complete it, I strike through it. So anyway, I'm constantly looking over at like, what do I need to do for the day? What do I need to do next? And this is something that the blogger tried in their experiment, which was basically like, he kept a little postcard in his pocket. Wait, hold on. Let me check on gender.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to say their name's David, but I'm just not going to make any assumptions. They have a little checklist of tasks in their pocket, and they said that the more they pulled that out and checked it, the better it was. The more productive their day was.
Yeah.
The more they relied on their head to know what their to-do list was, the less they got done. So that was one thing, just like checking more and more frequently. Another, their rule was the what am I doing right now rule. So if they started to look at something random on the internet, they would have to like check themselves, stand up, and say, what am I doing right now? Is this what I want to be doing right now? Like, if I want to take a break, let me take a 5-minute break, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, like, let me be intentional about that.
Right.
My similar thing is that I drink like a glass of water every hour or 2 hours at work. So I just have this like mug usually of hot water, and I like sip it, and then usually I forget about it like after like half an hour, and then at that hour mark I get like reminders on my phone, and sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't, but I sort of like finish the water, stand up, go to the bathroom, get more hot water, and come back. And in that time, I've been like, I don't need to keep looking up how to, or like what the exact statistics on, Black women in entrepreneurship is. I think what I have is good enough. I'm just going to move on. And that is such a good way to just check myself in that going down the rabbit hole kind of getting off topic thing that I do. Like, I'm doing work, but it's not effective.
Right.
So those are my 3 strategies: aiming for imperfection, keeping a checklist of tasks, and drinking water on the hour.
Yeah, I think like they're. Wow, that was a lot of energy for like drawing a blank. Really similar for me as well. When I'm working on this sort of stuff, like I'm doing a lot of editing. I try to make sure that every 2 hours, while I'm editing, I'm definitely taking a break, so that I'm not hurting my ears or my eyes, destroying my vision. Standing up, getting away from the machine. Also, when I'm not working on stuff, I try to make sure like that is like not just for breaks, but like because I don't have enough money to have my own like studio. I'm not a fancy person. Like my studio space is also my living space, and try to make sure that
it's beautiful though.
Oh, thank you. But I try to make sure that on purpose, like those spaces are, and I could do a better job of like actually writing this down and making it something that's physical, but that they are separate so that rest and or work can happen in the space separately from and independently from one another. So it's not just wafting through and like constantly working on something. Even with slightly longer deadlines, right now, my deadlines are right about once a month, and putting out 2 to 3 pieces a month. So that could really easily, I could really easily spend weeks and weeks on something, or like get really finite. I'm like, if I just get this last little scratchiness out of this bit of audio, or, oh my gosh, I want to do like some kind of wild visual effect on a piece. And it's like, nope, just doing, finish the work, get it up. There's also there was a tendency, wish I put this in the notes, there was an interesting technique I saw from another creator whose name is Andrew, is a music creator, who talked about simplifying to the type of work that you're going to do in a day. So let's say you have a bunch of different, like a heavy workload, because, in real life, things fluctuate. You have a heavy workload, bunch of stuff that needs to get done. And Andrew would, because I'm not going to assume genders, I'm not sure, but Andrew will just group types of work for a day. So let's say there was a bunch of interviews to do. They would just do interviews one day. just do writing another day. Just do video shooting another day, you know? To keep yourself cognitively in that type of task and be able to get that part completed for everything that you had to do, which is something that I certainly do a lot.
Yeah, that does seem like a good strategy. The jury's still out for me on whether that's the right strategy. I think it is. But I procrastinate writing the most of all of the tasks.
Sure.
Because that's the one where it feels like this is really gonna reflect on my abilities. You know, this is gonna determine what people think of me, and it's so messed up. I was thinking when we were talking about audio editing as well that the last time I was such a perfectionist on my section, I edited out all the all the pauses. Every time I was less eloquent, I just edited it all out. It was all polished. But that took me 4 hours to get it, get down like a fair amount of time. But it took way too long, and I mentioned it to you, and it really sort of dragged down my day. I didn't get any of the job applications in that I was looking for, and I remember you said what can we do to make this differently, and I was like, I'm so proud of this product though. I don't know that I want to do it differently, but now I'm realizing that was that trap of perfection, and it's more important for us to just get it done every month and be happy doing this rather than what it becomes. So this time I'm not editing out the I'm gonna leave them in and yeah.
Good.
So
that's really good.
I feel like we covered this topic well.
Yeah.
I think.
Me too.
Yeah.
And also this time we are to keep switching off responsibilities. I'll be doing the editing, right?
Syncing.
And you'll be doing...
You're doing syncing and editing your section. I'm going to edit my section and upload it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay! Okay, so we're going to outro the same song by Kali Uchis called Get Up. And my understanding of all the people to thank, it's all of you people on Patreon who are supporting our work. That is so lovely that people want to invest in us. So
yeah, so thank you so much.
Yeah.
And what's the
Is there
Patreon
anyone
again?
else we should thank?
What's the Patreon?
Oh, what's the Patreon again? It's Ank. Okay. Oh, Free Artist of New Haven?
Yep. Free Artist NHV on patreon.com. And
I'm a delinquent partner.
That's fun. They were all different names at one point, but the Patreon for anyone who would want to support our work, and thank you for all of the people supporting our work right now. It means the world to us. Is patreon.com/freeartistnhv. That link will also be in the description. And if you're supporting there, you'll also get this podcast early access from everyone else. So please think about supporting us there, and if not, please make sure to follow on our YouTube channel as well, which is where this will be hosted. We want to get this to as many years as possible, just because it's so meaningful to us. But thank you all the same.
All right. Talk to you next month.
Yay! And we'll hope to see you in the next episode.